Hello and welcome to this edition of Cricket Conversations. I'm going to be joined by my friend Vijay Lokapally, and together we shall try and rack the brains of two distinguished personalities. The first is, of course, Ajay Jadeja, a former India captain. He's known as one of the shrewdest thinkers of the game and speaks articulately for cricketers. We also will be joined by Steven Sylvester, a psychologist from England. He has been the chief psychologist for the West Indies cricket team. He's played a lot of first class cricket himself and has been a footballer as well. So he understands the psyche of these players and knows what it takes for them to adapt to new circumstances. Well, I thought I should ask you what can possibly happen in IPL when we try and have it behind closed doors. The idea should be to do the best thing that is possible for everybody, whether it's the players, whether it's the match officials, whether it is the fans. Let's set the ball rolling by asking Ajay Jadeja the first question. Thank you, Ajay, for joining us today. Can cricket be played behind closed doors, especially an event like the IPL, where we know that noise is an integral part of the entertainment package? Sport behind closed doors, and I'm specifically looking at IPL. Can you just visualize it for me?
How do you? It will be different for sure. But I mean, say if you consider a cricketer or any artist, say a singer who enjoys singing, he would sing sitting under a tree as well. But if he has people singing along or has people enjoying his singing, he would enjoy it more. Like an artist, he would paint his painting whether anybody is going to see it or not. But if somebody appreciates it, he gets more pleasure out of it. So the pleasure will be less, but they enjoy playing this game, and anybody who started playing a sport or has gone on to become a player who's good enough to play in IPL or for his country would have played most of his life without the crowd. I mean, this is probably the culmination of somebody's career, but to get here, he's always played without the crowd. He enjoys the sport itself, so he would want to play and enjoy it. I feel that way. I mean, if you have 100 odd players who from India who play for various teams, out of those 100, I'm sure 20, at least 50% of those would have never played in front of a crowd before they played IPL. So for the viewers or people who watch only or who are associated with a player only towards the end of their career, would think that it will be so much different for these players to play without the crowd. But, both of you have, followed cricket for so many years. When you go to a Deodhar Trophy game or a Dilip Trophy game, which is at the highest level, or even sometimes the Irani Trophy game, there is not a soul on the ground. But the intensity of the game never changes.
It's one thing to play domestic cricket without any spectators because nobody is going to come and watch. But you're playing international cricket with nobody to watch. I remember there was a test match where Sachin got 100 and he waved his bat and suddenly realized he was waving his bat to a stand where there was nobody.
But Vijayji, there must have been his teammates who were around to appreciate it. There would have been an opposition 11 who would have appreciated it or suffered his 100. For a sportsman, he would be happier just getting onto a field, playing the sport that he's played all his life. Somebody who's 25 has played 10 years of half of his life has been on the field, and most of its life has been without crowd. But I'm not doubting at all. I think when you have people, it enhances your experience as well as a player. So they will miss that. Of course they will miss. Because like I said, with any artist, you want people to enjoy your art. Of course, like I said, any artist would enjoy his art being enjoyed by many more people. There is no doubt about it.
Because psychologists are known to be good visualizers. You get people to visualize. Can you do this?
Yeah.
Can you do this for me? How will IPL look behind closed doors?
Well, it will look very different. We know that the IPL has brought a lot of extra impact, a lot of energy to cricket. It's brought a freshness, a vibrancy, almost like professional football over here. It's allowed people to get enthused about cricket. Where there's been empty stadiums around the world for a lot of cricket matches, we're now seeing the IPL being a front runner in bringing cricket on the equivalent to the Premier League. the atmosphere is vibrant, the crowd are enthusiastic, the noise, the fervour, and that enhances a player's ability to execute their skills and their performance.
Are we making too much of this no crowd happening? Because as you see, Test cricket all over the world is being played in front of empty stands. So as it is, they are used to it. They play domestic cricket without anybody watching. So this transition to go and play Test cricket in front of empty stands, would it? I don't think. I mean, I personally feel it's not going to pose a big problem for the players. Would you agree with it?
In part, okay. The first thing I'd say is the context of Test cricket with no fans is normal for an international cricketer. Yeah, I've just come back from working with the West Indies cricket team. They're used to playing without people, particularly Test cricket. And obviously, the format being over longer time frames and it's drawn out and it's very attritional, then that works okay. But one-day cricket and then T20 cricket is much faster, more emotional, more adrenaline, more stress, a quicker version of the game. The crowd are much more interactive. So it's a very, very different game. So I don't think you can compare empty stadiums in Test cricket with one-day stadiums for T20 games. They're different games, and they trigger different emotions. One is much more conciliatory because I'm in long time frames. I'm bowling my overs. I'm trying to build up pressure. I'm bowling certain lines and lengths. I'm looking to contain the batsman, and I'm doing that over a number of hours every session through a day. And the other one is fire, change, variety of balls, bowling slower bouncers. All the different types of variations. So, and the crowd take their part in that. When the balls hit out the ground, the noise goes up. The batsman feels energy. He gets momentum. That then transfers to the bowler, and it's much more gladiatorial. It's much more high paced. And as a result of that, the crowd will make a difference, in my opinion. The players will still have the skills because they're good cricketers. They can still play the game, and they will play. That's not the problem. As we've seen with the Bundesliga, and that's our only example at the moment, the play is still, the mastery of their ball control is still wonderful to watch. As a person involved in sport, I've loved watching the Bundesliga because I can hear every pass into the feet of another, each player. I can hear them trapping the ball and the way they get their body position to pass the ball off. But you can see all the intricacies. You can hear some of what the players are saying. And so for somebody who really enjoys the mastery of it, you can actually get a really good feel for what's going on. So when it comes to the IPL behind closed doors, I personally, as a former cricketer, will enjoy the whole entertainment of the cricket itself from the purest point of view. Who's taking control, what are the batsmen doing, how they work in it. And when you're doing your job, you don't think about the crowd anyway, but it's at the hot moments when it really counts and the crowd get up for that hot moment. Right, you're on stage, what do you do now? And it's those moments where the crowd can lift or debilitate a player's performance. And that's the theatre of sport that we watch and we're compelled to be involved in. So I hope that kind of answers it. But I think it's very context bound to the type of sport that the type of game that you're playing. So it's IPL, it's quick, it's fast, it's entertaining, there's lots of energy on the one hand. And then the individual player and his love for mastering that game in that context. And then those special moments, those defining moments that come up. What are you going to do now? And the crowd give you the context and you close off your thinking and you just get into action. Now, you're not going to have that crowd. You're going to have to find it within, and your teammates are going to have to help encourage you to say, this is so important to us. It means so much to become champions of the IPL this year that we need to find another gear to go further, make good decisions as cricketers and win this match. And that's all about the leadership of the group and about how they can bring the group together. So, so the overseas players, they're going to be even more important to play their part as men in the overall structure. They have to then pull the side together. And, if I was advising them, I'd be thinking about the communities and thinking about the Indian world that love cricket and find a way to get greater performance. I know in the UK, in the Premier League, the teams that are doing extra work now behind closed doors, even practicing in silence to try and mimic the silence that's going to happen on match day in the Premier League. So it's trying to find everything you can to encourage players to commit to their ideals of performing, but performing in a new way without actually their normal way of playing with a crowd.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult imagining a contest between two big teams and nobody to watch.
And watching will happen on, I presume it will happen on television. And even in normal times, if you look at, say, numbers or what we hear, what would be the percentage of people on the ground compared to the percentage of people who are hearing it on radio, reading about it in newspapers, the stories on next day, and watching it live on television? The people who are at the ground would not even make 0.1% anyway.
I also want to know, cricket is largely dependent on adrenaline flow. And that happens. We see a Virat Kohli, for example, in India, somebody who's pumped up, somebody who responds to audiences. For him to be playing to empty galleries will be tough, wouldn't it be? How will players be able to cope with lack of that adrenaline push?
Yeah, it's a great question, Raj, and it's difficult because, having watched Virat at close quarters in the Caribbean when the West Indies played India, this is a man that finds a reason to perform, has a deeper purpose to being a cricketer and doing it for his community, for the Indian population, to get the standards higher, to get people together, to build community. And so it's going to be very difficult unless there's conversations about how we can ensure the games maintain an intensity. Then it's going to be really low level. We've seen with the Bundesliga, I know it's a different sport with football, but we have seen the Bundesliga, the intensity and the amount of times the ball's kept in play is longer, the game is slower, because there's more time to think without the noise and the emotion being triggered by a big partisan crowd. It's very, very difficult to get the intensity on the level required where you stop your thinking and you just perform. You just, commit to your task. So I can understand the importance of the crowd in how we go about our performance.
How then do players manage this? It's almost like it is a practice session, isn't it? Sometimes we have seen teams practice on pitches which are next to the main pitch in IPL. Now, for them to go back the next day and play on the central pitch, it must seem like a practice session to them, wouldn't it be? How then will they be able to get that kind of intensity that they have typically always shown? We have seen it on television, we have seen it live. That intensity is such a very integral part of their cricket. How do players then generate that intensity when the whole stadium is empty?
Yeah, they've got to find a reason to play, Raj. They've got to find another way of coming together. So they have to find, well, look, we haven't got the crowd here. We have to get used to playing this extended practice, which is going to feel a bit like a practice match because you're playing behind closed doors. There isn't the normal match environment. So, and because it hasn't happened before, many players don't know what to expect. It's unprecedented. So they're going to have to come in and understand, right, what are we going to do? What city am I representing? How can I find an extra level of intensity? How has the pandemic affected our community? What can we do to help our country celebrate and use the IPL to actually forward the way we think about ourselves as a society? And so you're going to have to find different reasons to be ambassadorial in that silence. Because every player is a performer, is an entertainer, and they need the crowd. As you said, Virat loves the crowd. It gets him fired up. His emotions get going, and then he commits to his task. Now, how is he going to do that when there are no crowd? And that is a really, really interesting thing to look at. And then in the Premier League football in the UK, I'm working with players, I'm talking that through and finding out how they can add greater meaning and purpose to their players as footballers. And that's an interesting way of looking at it. And they're saying that, yeah, I have to think about my community. I have to think about, for example, Black Lives Matter. So there's some stuff coming out where they're thinking about what's happened in the world in terms of justice and fairness and equality, and they're putting extra input into thinking about that so that they can actually be leaders for their community.
Right. It seems a little difficult because the human mind is conditioned to certain things. I know, for example, test matches are not played before such large crowds as an IPL game is, or a one-day international is sometimes. So the players are kind of, they will be aware of what it is to play before some empty stands. But this will be a whole new experience to go through week on week, match after match of an empty stand, of a whole empty stadium, and playing just for television cameras and for your own pride. It is a whole new experience. Does the human mind have the capacity to adapt in such a manner and so quickly at that, Steve?
Yeah, it's a great question, Raj. I think we can't wait for adaptation, because adaptation means something happens and then we change our behaviour and our attitude and our way of working according to that. What we've got to do is generate new learning in this environment. So they've got to be practicing and training without sound, and they've got to find a new way of operating. They've got to generate the learning of how do I get up for a game when there's no noise. And it is a new unprecedented situation. How do I find a way to communicate and to work with my team and to have the same level of intensity? And I think it's the players that explore that now and find out what are we going to do when we come together, and how are we going to find a way to make this purposeful. Because as you say, the rhythm of games every week without crowds, it's very, very difficult when your role is to entertain and you're not entertaining. You think with you're a journalist, if you couldn't do your journalism, how would that and actually correspond with people? You couldn't do your job as effectively as you do when you are actually talking to people. So I think there's a huge issue in your job changing, and the players that not adapt but actually generate new learning on how to work, how to play and perform and entertain without a crowd is going to be the magic. The coaches, the leaders of the team, the senior players, bringing each of the groups, each of the cities together, and being able to say, right, we're going to strive for a new way of doing things, and what is our how are we going to cope with difficult scenarios in the matches, and how do we go about as one to battle and to fight in those circumstances when we're not hearing anything. So it's going to be interesting to see which players naturally find their feet in that, which players it triggers emotions that they don't really understand, and the stress of the occasion without the crowd is going to be interesting to examine. And the teams that go week to week and look for feedback on how people are coming together, what are the stress levels, what are the emotions, how are people coping with it, are the ones that are going to actually succeed in this new sort of alien environment.
I'm just trying to understand if it is a sustainable normal to play with nobody to watch, because you train. The hardest part of preparing is your training, which nobody is watching. And then when it comes to go out and perform, again you realize that nobody is watching. So what am I playing for? I mean, if I'm an actor, if there is no instant appreciation, there may not be applause in the theater, but I can see from the expressions of the crowd that they are appreciating my performance in the theater. So in a stadium, without an active participation of the crowd, how am I going to enhance my performance? And what kind of quality sport are we going to get?
So it's a great question. I think every player now in any sport across the world is searching for a new reason to be playing their sport, because they have to find a new inner drive. It's not about entertaining the crowd. It's not about the participation of the crowd in their performance. That now is not going to happen. So you have to have a deeper, more purposeful, more meaningful reason to be playing the sport than just being an entertainer. And I've had so many conversations about this because it's a very, very complex individual thing. And each person has to find their reason. And without a reason to be playing in this environment, the performance will decline.
So it is important to have, but when you can't have them, and at this moment of time, practically, it won't be very safe to get people to crowd. And I guess you're not even allowed in most part of the world. You're not allowed to collect a lot of people together. In India, we have only allowed 20 people, even when somebody is passed away. So how could you have 50,000 or 1 lakh people in a stadium to watch a cricket game? That would be stupid. Playing the game won't be stupid, but I think getting 1 lakh people into a cricket ground in today's time would be a decision that I would not want to make. In a normal time, I'm talking about before all this corona or any other period. If there is a game that's going on and it's being televised and it's being written about and it's on radio and there are people on the ground, what would be the percentage of people who would be on the ground? They are very important. I'm not trying to say that 1% or 0.1% also of the total people who watch it, they also become part of that game.
Correct.
So they are important, but the game has also, and this game has been through many times. I think it's only been during the war, there was a period that you didn't play, but you played in different times. Before television, this game was on. Before radio, this game was on. Print was around before this game came, and you had this game before internet. You had this game before many other things that have happened. The game is carried on, and it's still being played at 22 yards with a 5.5-ounce ball, and still 11. It was only one period that we had 12, where Super Sub came along.
Steven, in the process, are we challenging the players? Let us say 8 teams, and even if they have got 15 players each, they are looking at 120 cricketers, and let us say about 10 sets of umpires. So, are we challenging these people to stretch the whole possibility of how far their mind can cope with certain situations? Are we testing them? Are we using them as guinea pigs? Is it fair on the cricketers at all?
It's a good question, and it's been raised over here in the UK with the Premier League, where certain players, I think it's down to individual differences. There are certain players that feel that they're being tested, just being used as guinea pigs, if you like, in terms of being rolled out, because no other profession is going back to work in the UK. I don't know whether it's the same in India, but no other industry is going back to work in the same way. The players are being tested twice a week over here. They're not being able to shower or eat at the training venues. They go and train, go back into their cars, and then back home. And literally, we're on lockdown. So it's pretty difficult to know that there is this danger of catching this virus, and you're going back to work, and what are the risks? The risks are being mitigated at the clubs over here, but it will come across a player's mind, and there is fear over what the unknown is. What is this virus doing? How do we live? And that's for everyone, because like cricketers and footballers, we're all human, so we all experience that concern about what is really going on with the world and this pandemic.
So we are about to discover which of the cricketers is really mentally tough, who can adapt quickly to a strange situation. Obviously, it is not unique to one player. Everybody is going through the same thing. But are we going to discover somebody who's got enormous mental strength to be able to deal with a situation like this? And typically, Stephen, what they say is practice like you're playing in a match, and when you're playing a match, treat it like a practice session. Is this going to really come true? Are they going to treat it like a practice session and then behave that everything is okay with the world?
Well, again, it's down to the individual. I think it's about learning to have a flexible mindset. So you have to be able to tolerate the uncertainty. And that's just a normal experience that we're all having as humans. Now, when it comes to cricketers that are about to play in the IPL, they're going to have to learn to tolerate that ambiguity. And they're going to have to talk that through and be able to get counsel on, can I be flexible about my own personal fears for playing, on the one hand. Number two, can I train the way I'm going to play? And we know with some cricketers like Virat, I've watched him train when he played against the West Indies. His training ethos is so much higher. We train harder than with the actual game that we're going to play, so that he can transfer that work rate and that standard into his performance. So I'd be saying to the franchises, are you training even harder now? Are you getting the intensity even stronger? Are you getting players to open up and talk and be more flexible about how they think about cricket? Are you getting them to understand how they have to serve the Indian community with this game, because you're a flagship to the world in cricket? So these are the things I would be saying to the players. Come on, it's openness. It's the choice of your emotions. It's dealing with stress. It's being able to be a leader, almost ambassadorial for India. There's not much sport going around in the world at the moment. So you're there as a beacon of light to say, yes, cricket can forge forward and give us some entertainment that we need. And let's face it, the IPL is a wonderful product to watch. We all enjoy watching it, and we all enjoy seeing the crowds and the razzmatazz and the energy. And it's, how can that be done? They have experienced clubs over here training with crowd noise, and they found the players are responding to that. So does the league organise it that they pump crowd noise into the venues to enhance the ability of the players to connect with their performance? So all these things are up in the air. I'd be looking at, in process terms, what cricketers are okay and flexible, so that they allow the situation of ambiguity to be understood. What players are totally inflexible and they're just not enjoying it because they can't get up for the battle in the same way. What are management doing in a franchise to help the players create an environment where they feel stronger and they feel freer to express themselves? And all those sorts of conversations need to be had before the tournament starts, in the training process, so that we get an understanding of how people can react to the situation.
So would it be possible for us to have a stadium where you would have large screens and spectators would be scattered all over the place, not inside, obviously not inside the stadium, in the city, with social distancing, and they cheer from wherever they are, and the players get to see it on the screen and then probably motivate themselves?
Yeah, that could enhance the players' feelings of being isolated playing their sport, because it's never happened before. They've played in empty stadiums, obviously, in their careers, and they train. But when it really counts, let's say an IPL final, and there's no crowd there, when you need that burst of energy, and the crowd are making unbelievable noise, and that's not there. So the player has to search for a reason for doing something more. And if they can find ways, I think this is a board level exercise. There should be a protocol at every franchise about how we go to enhance and make the players feel supported by the Indian community, by the nation, at each ground, so that India is a flag waver for new opportunities to be able to play in this new way, where crowds can be socially distanced and the noise and the energy can be fed into the stadium. Because we know if the player has a dominant skill and has good emotions and good feelings, if you get a good crowd, then that increases their performance. If the player feels low and down and there's no crowd, then that decreases performance. So the crowd has an overwhelming impact in the performance of a team. And therefore, I think it's incumbent on everybody involved in the cricket, the IPL in India, from players to coaches to managers to chief execs to the board, to find some new way of making the players feel that extra bit of, this is what I'm doing it for. And that would definitely help.
It also challenges, sorry Vijay, this also challenges the fans of sport, doesn't it? Whether it's cricket or football, the fans are being challenged at this point of time.
100%. And we've seen over here that they want to play the biggest Premier League games at neutral venues because of the fear of fans disobeying the social distancing rules and just coming together and then causing a spike in the transmission rate of the virus. So there is a concern about keeping fans away and fans understanding their new way of doing things. And it's all very challenging, Raj. It really is. Yeah, it's challenging.
Thank you.
I don't think playing cricket will make a difference to the social support, because we've ended up becoming a very small segment in the society, and for only one reason, because of us only, and we haven't contributed enough to the society in these troubled times. It's my personal opinion. I don't know what others have been doing. And it doesn't stop somebody, because it doesn't start somebody playing and it doesn't stop somebody playing. It just becomes better, and it gets, it's like a nice tadka at the end of a good dal that you made. Even if you don't have the tadka, it doesn't mean you don't have dal. So from a player's point of view, he would be dying to get onto the field.
Would it be the most stressful of times for cricketers to even think that they're being used by the board, by the IPL governing council, as maybe even as guinea pig? Because nobody has played sport in India. There have been no competitions that have opened up. They could well be the first ones, if it happens. They could well be the first ones who are playing competitive sport. Will it be very stressful for players to think that because the board wants some of the broadcasting revenue to come in, and they're not really bothered about the crowd in the stadium filling up 40,000 seats or 50,000 seats, will it affect the player performance if they start to think that they're being used as guinea pigs?
Well, if any players feel that way and they're not open about it and they don't discuss it and get it cleared down and get assurances from the board about how the sort of the biocentres are going to run, free of the virus, and how the testing is going to work and what the protocols are and what the medical staff involved are, then yes, that's going to cause a lot of concern for everyone involved. So that's about education, and that's about planning, and that's about openness, and that's about getting the players to discuss where they feel more comfortable, where it doesn't feel like they're just being put out there just as a guinea pig. They feel that actually this is an opportunity for us to do a good thing for the world. It's about humanity, Raj. This is bigger now than just cricket. This is about, can the board use the IPL in the way that it's got to actually bridge some change in the world about how we do things. And I'm sure the franchises will get the testing and get the protocols right and give the players the assurances. And if the players feel comfortable with that, then I think that will go a long way to put in the cricket. Get some cricket, get some entertainment whilst everybody's at home.
Back in 99, 2000, the Pakistanis had come to India, and there was a test match in Calcutta where on the last day of the game, there was no crowd. People were not allowed to come in at all. Pakistan went on to win that match because there had been riots the previous evening after Sachin Tendulkar was given out. There was no crowd when the test match ended, and it was pretty weird. Even to watch on television, it was pretty weird because broadcasters love a crowd behind the players. They want to see fans as well. They want to show the emotions of fans as well. We've had some experience of big cricket being played in front of empty galleries, but this is going to be new. If IPL does go ahead with in front of empty galleries, it is going to be new. And teams, the franchises will have to get used to the idea of not having home advantage at all, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think over here they talk about it being the new normal, which means that we don't quite know what the future holds for anything anymore when it comes to mass participation and crowd audiences at stadium. So the new normal is a new terrain, and everybody's just running around thinking, what are we going to do without the crowd? We know, for example, in the Bundesliga, the home advantage is gone now because there's a greater parity between teams, because the lack of partisan crowds have had massive impact on the ability to win a game. Now that's going to happen. Sport and cricket, football, whatever sport, is an emotional game. We need the crowd. They're part and parcel of who we are. And that's what we're doing it for. That's our role. So I think it is a slightly new, interesting environment that we're operating in. And it's about whether the board can get the franchises together and work week by week to try and improve the product without the crowd. That's certainly what I'd be advising the board to do. And I don't know whether that sounds outlandish, but I would definitely try to see if we can say, look, if moving forward we're going to have this new normal with a lack of crowd attendance at grounds, what can we do to improve the product? How can we create an atmosphere? What can we do to make the players feel more supported, more cared for, and more free to perform for a reason, to help the country? So I think if I was, the board members, somebody should be an advocate and pushing ambassadorily for what this new normal is going to do for the country at large.
Would take away one very important slice of history from our lives: the match ticket as a souvenir.
Yeah, it's difficult for everyone. I think the thing is, everybody's in transition, and everybody's fairly stressed, and obviously deeply saddened by the situation. Because our normal way of operating has been been blown up, just gone, and it just makes us feel very uneasy, very uncertain. We've never experienced anything like this, and that's the globe. Whoever I speak to in the world, everyone is just stressed by the transition of this lockdown experience. And when I speak to players, because that's the fact, I say, your job is to go out and celebrate this, so that we have something to hang on to at the moment, because everyone's feeling fairly down and depressed and isolated by the process. So at least we can have some cricket, get back playing. It would be a wonderful thing, so long, obviously, it's safe to do so.
Steven, both Vijay and I are from a different generation altogether. When we grew up and we started writing on our first test matches, we knew a test match was on. The captains would walk out for toss, and you could hear the crowd roar. That's going to be missing for some time, for sure. I think that is one of the fallouts of the COVID scenario. But I guess we'll have to put up with it and see what best we can do with the situation.
Yeah, I think that's the leadership, Raj. That's where, our nostalgia, what you're describing there, is the love for the game. And we all love the game deeply, but it's been interrupted. And it requires leadership now to say, right, our players need to step up now and actually serve even more and entertain even more and produce better cricket, better tournament. So I'd be definitely asking the board, how can we produce a better tournament given these circumstances? How can the overseas players do more? Is there a way of getting other new youngsters, new Indian blooded in this game, and get them through? So it's a challenge, but it's one of those ones to either to enjoy or to just feel pretty sad and down about.
Thank you so much, Steve. As Indians say, namaste. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.